What is up, everybody? My name is Jeremy and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about all things dragons and how Miguel Sapochnik and Ryan Condal brought these magnificent beasts to life. Miguel recently sat down for an interview with Entertainment Weekly for a totally scientific look at the dragons on House of the Dragon. And I thought that was very interesting. He revealed some really cool stuff that I thought would be fun to talk about. So without further ado, let's dive right in.
When you look at the dragons, what do you see?
I suppose I see us.
Dreams didn't make us kings. Dragons did.
One of the things that was recently revealed was that we will be meeting 9 different dragons in Season 1 alone. And now we're seeing exactly what went into bringing these creatures to life. And it was some pretty interesting stuff, I must say. A lot of awesome technology goes into making these dragons. It starts off by stating how Miguel pretty much became a living encyclopedia of all things fire breathers. And he even ran his own dragon lectures with Ryan Condal and the rest of the cast and crew. Emily Carey talks about having a conversation in rehearsal about how one would interact with dragons and what it would actually be like to live in a world with dragons. It's pretty interesting stuff. It also goes on to say that the dragons that we are going to be meeting on House of the Dragon are going to be interacted with in a much different manner than they were on Game of Thrones, which makes sense. There's a lot more dragons here. This is at the peak of Targaryen power, as it were. So it makes sense that the dragons would be totally different altogether from the 3 that we got on Game of Thrones. Miguel then goes on to describe how there will be 3 different types of dragons on House of the Dragon, each modeled off the skulls of different animals. A wolf skull, which definitely looks like Caraxes. Caraxes has that kind of wolf look, which has that convex type feel that they were describing. A T-Rex skull, which I imagine is going to be reserved for some of the bigger dragons, like maybe Vhagar and Vermithor down the road, which has that big bridge of the nose. And the third one was a horse skull, and that definitely looks a lot like Caraxes' dragon by the looks of it. It has that kind of longer snout, and it almost gives it more of a serpent-type feel. Miguel also states that they produce up to 1,000 different pieces of concept art for the dragons. They wanted to make sure that the dragons had the same kind of biological feel from Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion, yet not so similar that they looked exactly alike, which is good because one thing I noticed about the Game of Thrones dragons, Drogon, Viserion, and Rhaegal, was they all looked great, really good looking dragons, but they all kind of looked exactly the same with the exception of different color schemes. Like they kind of looked, it was almost like carbon copies of each other. And here on House of the Dragon, you can really see the different variety of dragon, using the different types of skulls from the different colors and everything else. Like the dragons are definitely more distinct here. Miguel then goes on to talk about the dragon's physiology and how dragons never stop growing, which is kind of in line with the books. We know that Vhagar continues to grow till she becomes really big, and same thing with Balerion the Black Dread, where Balerion grew so large to the point where he couldn't even fly anymore. Miguel goes on to talk about Vhagar and describes her as a cantankerous old lady, and how bits of her are falling off due to old age, and getting her in the air and landing her is a nightmare, apparently. But once she is up and running and in the air, he describes her as a B-52 bomber, a stunning force to be reckoned with. Which does line up with the books as well, because Vhagar is described as being a much slower when she ascends, especially compared to dragons like Caraxes and Caraxes and Sunfyre, who are much swifter because they're smaller and younger. He talks about how at some point in their prime, they are these fully formed, incredible beasts, but as they get older, they essentially get cancer and begin to break down. They become so big that they start to break their legs when they land, and that's eventually what kills them, their own weight. Miguel drew a lot of inspiration for the dragons based on the history of dinosaurs. He would look at dinosaurs and how they would become so massive that they just couldn't sustain themselves any longer. He explains how it's not just the size of the dragon that matters, but the state the dragon is in as well. We then get a little bit of info on how the Targaryens place dragon eggs in the cradles of the infants, in hopes that the dragon and the child will grow together, strengthening the bond. He then goes on to describe the Dragon Keepers and how they help train the dragons and teach Targaryen children how to bond with them by teaching them commands in High Valyrian, which is really awesome. I'm really glad that we're going to be getting some scenes in High Valyrian. It's just such a badass language to not use again. They have to bring it back. So I'm really glad that we're going to be getting some scenes like that. And we have got confirmation from Matt Smith that he and Rhaenyra do have some scenes together in High Valyrian. The show has also confirmed that we are going to be getting 3 different wild dragons in later seasons, which is really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the wild dragons. I love the wild dragons in the book, Sheepstealer and Cannibal in particular, both awesome dragons. Overall, we got some really cool info on how they're bringing the dragons to life and making them characters in and of themselves, which is really cool. The show is just around the corner now, and I cannot wait for it to start. We will be doing live review streams after every episode discussing all things House of the Dragon, along with uploading tons of other House of the Dragon content in between. So be sure to subscribe, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future uploads, and as always, thank you for watching. We will catch you on the next one.
Dreams didn't make us kings. Dragons did.